The desert winds of Karen whipped across the cracked battlefield, carrying the scent of dust and ozone. Jagged rocks jutted from the sand like the spines of some long-dead creature, and the sky burned a pale orange, reflecting the dying sun. Soldiers of the human expeditionary force moved cautiously, scanning the horizon for enemy activity, but in the center of it all, two figures drew the eyes of everyone present. Captain Elara Voss stood tall, her armor gleaming faintly under the fading sun. Her eyes, sharp and calculating, swept the field with ease. Even now she appeared calm, as if the chaos surrounding her barely touched her. She had earned her reputation not just as a brilliant strategist, but as someone who could see 3 moves ahead in any battle. Lieutenant Ryan Kaur, a promising officer fresh from the academy, marched forward with pride in his chest and fire in his eyes. His boots kicked up clouds of dust as he approached, his chest puffed out. He had heard of Elara's skills, of course, but he had never seen her in action. And he was certain that his own talents could match hers, maybe even surpass them. The field commander raised a hand, signaling the beginning of the training skirmish. Holographic targets and simulated drones flickered to life across the terrain. The rules were simple. Each officer would command a squad, maneuvering them through the field, capturing objectives and eliminating threats. Victory would go to whoever demonstrated superior strategy and leadership. Rian wasted no time. "All right, team," he barked. "Stick to my lead, and we'll dominate this exercise. Watch and learn, Elara." Elara's lips curved into a faint smile, more amused than pleased. "Confidence is good," she said, her voice calm, "but overconfidence can be dangerous." Ryan barely registered the warning. He launched his squad forward with precision, sending them around the rocks and dunes. He had studied the field and had a plan, a clever one. He was sure no one would anticipate his move, but Elara was already several steps ahead. Her squad moved as one, fluid and precise. She anticipated Ryan's strategy with ease, countering his maneuvers at every turn. A drone that Ryan thought was safely captured suddenly exploded under her squad's control. His team faltered. "Keep moving," Ryan shouted, trying to regain control, but his commands fell flat. His squad members hesitated, unsure of the next move. Every time he adjusted, Elara had already adapted, always one step ahead. Finally, it happened. Elara executed a maneuver so sharp and precise that Ryan's entire formation was surrounded. His squad was immobilized, trapped in a crossfire of simulation drones. Ryan's eyes widened in disbelief. He had trained for years, learned every tactic, but nothing had prepared him for this. Elara approached calmly, her eyes meeting his. "Your strategy has potential, Lieutenant," she said, her voice steady. "But you relied too much on predictability. Anticipate your opponent's mind, not just the battlefield." Ryan's face burned with humiliation. He had underestimated her. No, he had assumed she would follow the predictable paths he had studied from reports. Now, in front of the entire squad, he had been outplayed, outsmarted, and in his mind humiliated. "Good exercise, Lieutenant," she added, her tone polite but firm. "Remember this lesson." Ryan swallowed hard, forcing a nod. "Yes, ma'am," he muttered, trying to steady his pride. But inside, a storm raged. How could someone so young, so calm, be this sharp? How had she seen through his every move? The squad, meanwhile, murmured among themselves, some impressed, some stunned. No one had expected Elara to demonstrate such brilliance in a simple training skirmish. Ryan's humiliation was clear to all, but so was the undeniable skill of the woman who had bested him. As the exercise ended, the holographic drones dissipated into thin air, leaving only the harsh landscape behind. Ryan stood alone for a moment, staring at the horizon, trying to digest what had just happened. The defeat stung, but beneath it, a grudging respect was forming. Elara walked over to him, her steps quiet on the sand. "Ryan," she said softly, "you have talent, but talent alone is not enough. Pride can be a dangerous enemy. Learn to control it." He looked up at her, still feeling the heat of embarrassment. I will," he replied, though his voice lacked conviction. "Good," she said, giving a small nod. "Tomorrow we'll start a new exercise, and this time I expect you to think differently. Not just about strategy, but about trust and leadership." Rian felt a spark ignite within him, a mixture of determination and curiosity. He wanted to prove himself, not just to the squad or to Elara, but to himself. For the first time, he realized that the galaxy was far bigger and more dangerous than he had imagined, and that surviving it would demand more than pride. It would demand respect, discipline, and partnership. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the battlefield, Ryan's gaze lingered on Elara. Despite the sting of humiliation, he felt a strange pull, an understanding that this woman, so confident, so brilliant, was someone he could learn from. Whether he liked it or not, his journey was now bound to hers. In the quiet after the exercise, the squad dispersed, leaving the two officers alone. The wind swept the sands clean, but the lesson remained, etched into Ryan's mind. He had been humiliated, yes, but he had also glimpsed the brilliance of a commander who might just teach him how to survive, and perhaps thrive, in a galaxy where strength alone was not enough. The battle may have been a simulation, but the bond forming that day, born out of challenge and clash, was real, and neither of them would forget it. The starship Valor's Edge hummed quietly as it cut through the dark void between planets. Inside, the crew moved with precision, their routines well practiced, but tension simmered beneath the surface. Lieutenant Ryan Kor still felt the sting of yesterday's humiliation, and though he had tried to bury it, he could not shake the memory of Elara Voss's calm, piercing gaze as she had outmaneuvered him on the battlefield. Elara leaned against the observation deck's glass, arms crossed, staring at the distant stars. She was aware of Ryan's thoughts, though she didn't comment. She had seen pride and stubbornness before, but she also sensed potential. The mission ahead would test that potential in ways that a training exercise never could. "Captain," Ryan said, stepping into the room with his usual brisk confidence, "I've reviewed the mission plan for the Kirin research station. I think I can optimize the squad's deployment." Elara turned slowly, her eyes studying him. "Optimizing doesn't always mean improving," she replied. "This isn't a simulation. Lives are at stake." Ryan clenched his jaw. He had been preparing for this operation for weeks, but he quickly realized that Elara's calm authority could not be argued with. He swallowed his pride and nodded. Understood. The research station had once been a hub for human experimentation, now abandoned after the Alien Alliance attacked Kirin. Intelligence suggested that the station held vital technology, a prototype energy generator that could shift the balance of power in the region. Recovering it would be difficult. Enemy patrols were heavy, and the terrain was treacherous. As the Isiate squad assembled, the awkward tension between Ryan and Elara was impossible to ignore. The other soldiers glanced nervously at their two leaders, uncertain how their disagreements might affect the mission. "Listen carefully," Elara said, her voice cutting through the hum of the engines. "We have limited time. Rian, you'll lead the infiltration team. I'll cover the perimeter. Communication must be constant, and we follow the plan exactly. Deviations will be costly." Ryan bristled internally. Being told to follow her lead again reminded him of the previous days. Embarrassment. But he knew better than to argue in front of the crew. "Understood, Captain," he said, forcing steady tones. The shuttle dropped out of hyperspace above Kirin's surface, the planet's red deserts stretching endlessly below. The windstorm whipped across the landing zone, and visibility was low. Rian's team disembarked first, scanning the ruined buildings for signs of alien patrols. "Elara," Rian whispered into the comms. "I see movement at Sector 4. I want to take a flanking route, might give us an advantage." "Flanking could expose you to unseen threats," Elara responded calmly. "We stick to the perimeter approach. Safety first." Ryan clenched his fists, but nodded. He hated following orders, yet he knew the mission's success required trust. As they moved through the station's shattered halls, alarms suddenly blared. Alien drones activated, patrolling with mechanical precision. Ryan's squad froze for a split second. Caught. Off guard. Alara's voice came through clearly. Ryan, hold position, wait for my signal. The next moment, a wave of energy blasts cut across the corridor, disabling the drones before they could react. Alara and her team emerged from a side corridor, moving with fluid precision. Ryan watched, impressed despite himself. The sting of humiliation from yesterday's battle was not gone, but a grudging respect began to take root. Move now, Alara ordered. Take the generator and fall back. Cover fire is coming. Ryan's squad surged forward, securing the generator while dodging scattered attacks. The team worked together, but Ryan noticed the difference in their cohesion when Alara's guidance was present. Every command she gave was clear, every movement calculated. A sudden explosion shook the corridor behind them, sending sparks and debris into the air. Ryan instinctively shielded a squad member, but it was Alara who pulled the others to safety with swift, precise movements. Settled, they regrouped in a wide chamber. The shuttle broke through the thick clouds of Vanar 4, a hostile alien world where no human had set foot in years. Lightning split the sky in jagged streaks, illuminating the planet's vast forests glowing faintly with bioluminescent light. The mission was dangerous. Recover a hidden prototype weapon left behind during the first wave of war. If the aliens found it first, humanity's survival would be at risk. Captain Alara Voss stood at the front of the squad, eyes sharp as the shuttle descended. Lieutenant Ryan Kaur sat a few seats behind, tightening the straps of his armor. He tried to look calm, but inside his chest his heart thudded like a war drum. This wasn't a simulation. This wasn't a controlled environment. This was a mission where one mistake meant death. Remember, Alara said, her voice steady as the shuttle shook from turbulence. This planet is alive. The wildlife here is as deadly as any enemy soldier. Stay close, watch each other's backs, and follow every order without hesitation. The squad nodded in unison. The shuttle landed on a clearing of damp moss glowing softly under their boots. Around them, massive trees stretched into the misty sky, their trunks pulsing with faint light like veins filled with fire. Strange sounds echoed in the distance. Animal calls that were both beautiful and frightening. Ryan adjusted his helmet and scanned the shadows. He couldn't help but whisper to the soldier beside him, "Feels like the forest itself is watching us." Alara overheard and replied without turning, "It is. Move carefully." The team advanced, weaving between massive roots and thick undergrowth. Bioluminescent insects buzzed around them, glowing in blues and greens. For a brief moment, Ryan forgot about war. The world was dangerous, yes, but also breathtakingly beautiful. Their path, however, soon tested them. The ground trembled, and from the underbrush alien traps sprung to life, razor-sharp vines that lashed out like whips. One soldier stumbled, nearly caught, but Ryan acted without thinking. He shoved his comrade out of danger, taking a cut along his arm instead. "Lieutenant," Alara snapped, rushing to his side. "Are you hurt?" Ryan winced but shook his head. "Just a scratch, I'll live." Her eyes softened for a brief moment. "Good instincts. You saved him. But don't waste yourself recklessly." The squad patched him up quickly and pressed on, more alert now. Every sound in the forest seemed louder, every shadow more dangerous. After hours of careful movement, they reached the ruins of an abandoned bunker hidden beneath moss and vines. The heavy door had long been rusted, but with effort, they forced it open. Inside, the air smelled of damp stone and decay. "Stay sharp," Alara warned. "If the prototype is still here, it won't be unguarded." Inside the bunker, faint lights flickered to life as they entered. Old defense drones, half broken but still active, stirred in the darkness. Their red eyes glowed, and their weapons sparked. The squad dove for cover as the drones opened fire. Bolts of energy scorched the walls, leaving glowing marks. Ryan gritted his teeth and shouted over the noise, "We need to take the left flank." Alara considered quickly, then nodded. "Do it. I'll cover the right." For the first time, their movements felt natural together. Ryan's boldness pushed the squad forward, while Alara's precision guided them around every danger. They fought side by side, weaving their commands into one rhythm. Finally, with coordinated strikes, the last drone fell, sparking and twitching on the ground. The room fell silent except for the squad's heavy breathing. "There," Alara said, pointing toward a reinforced chamber. Inside, a glowing crate sat atop a pedestal, the prototype weapon. Ryan and another soldier moved carefully, disabling the remaining traps before retrieving it. The moment his hands touched the crate, the ground shook violently. Dust rained down from the ceiling, and the forest outside roared with a sound that made every soldier freeze. "What was that?" one of them whispered. The answer came quickly. A massive shape emerged from the forest, crashing through trees as if they were nothing. The creature's scales shimmered like molten metal, its jaws glowing with fiery light. A predator born of this alien world, awakened by the noise. The squad fell back in panic, but Alara's voice rang out firm and clear. "Hold formation! Don't! Scatter!" The beast lunged, shaking the ground as it landed. Its eyes locked onto them, glowing with hungry rage. Energy blasts bounced harmlessly off its armored hide. "Captain," Ryan shouted, his heart racing. "What do we do?" Ilara's mind raced. They couldn't kill it, not with their weapons. Survival depended on strategy. "Ryan," she said sharply, locking eyes with him, "trust me. We'll trap it." He hesitated only a second before nodding. "Tell me what to do." She pointed toward a cluster of unstable rock spires near the cliffside. "Draw it there. Make it chase you." Ryan's pulse thundered in his ears. It was madness, but he ran, shouting and firing to draw the beast's attention. The ground shook as the creature thundered after him, every step like a hammer. His lungs burned, but he pushed forward, weaving between rocks until he reached the spires. "Ilara! Now!" he yelled. The squad fired concentrated blasts at the base of the spires. With a groan, the rocks toppled, crashing down in a massive landslide. Dust and stone buried the beast in a deafening roar. The ground trembled one final time before falling still. Silence followed. The squad stared, stunned. Ryan bent over, panting, sweat running down his face. He looked at Alara, who was standing firm, calm even after such chaos. "You trusted me," she said softly, "and you lived." Ryan met her gaze, chest heaving. "I didn't just trust you. I believed you." For the first time, there was no pride, no arrogance in his voice. Just respect. The squad secured the prototype and prepared for extraction, but the moment lingered between them. Ryan had risked everything, not to prove himself, but because he believed in Alara's plan, and Alara, in turn, had relied on him to carry it out. As the shuttle lifted off, carrying them away from the glowing forest and the buried monster, Ryan sat quietly. His arm ached, his body was exhausted, but his mind was alive with new understanding. The humiliation of the past no longer felt like a wound. It felt like a lesson. And in its place, something stronger had begun to grow. Trust. For the first time, he realized that his bond with Alara was not a burden but a lifeline. And it was only the beginning. The Valor's Edge floated silently in orbit above the war-torn planet of Dravos. The ship's engines hummed like a heartbeat in the background, steady and constant. For most of the crew, it was just another pause between missions. But for Captain Alara Voss and Lieutenant Ryan Kor, it was something more. A chance to breathe after the storm on Vanar 4. The squad had been granted a few hours of rest. Some soldiers gathered in the mess hall, laughing quietly, over ration packs. Others cleaned their weapons or checked armor plates. Yet among the chatter, one thing was clear. Everyone had noticed the shift between their two leaders. Just days ago, Ryan and Alara had clashed openly. His pride had been wounded, his arrogance sharp enough to draw attention. But after the mission, in the glowing forests where trust had been the only weapon against the monstrous predator, things were different. Ryan walked with less of a swagger and more of a purpose. And Alara, though still calm and distant, allowed herself the smallest signs of approval when she glanced at him. In the quiet of the observation deck, the stars spilled endlessly across the glass window. Ryan stood there, arms folded, staring out at the vast darkness. He heard the soft footsteps before he saw her. Alara stepped beside him, her reflection faint in the glass. "You've changed," she said simply. Ryan glanced at her, startled. "Changed? How?" "You listen now," she replied, her tone steady. "Before, you only wanted to command. Now, you understand what it means to follow when needed." He gave a small, awkward smile. "Well, I had a good teacher." For a brief moment, silence stretched between them, not uncomfortable but thoughtful. Outside the glass, a star flared in the distance, its light flickering across their faces. The peace, however, didn't last long. The next mission briefing came swiftly. The Alien Alliance had established a supply chain on Dravos, using the ruined cities as cover. If those supplies reached the front, humanity's forces would be pushed back. Their squad had been chosen to sabotage the chain. In the briefing room, Alara stood before the holomap, the city ruins glowing in red and blue lights. "We'll strike the convoy here," she explained, pointing to a collapsed overpass. "It's narrow, easy to ambush, but also dangerous if we're too slow." Ryan studied the map, his mind racing with ideas. This time, instead of pushing his own plan immediately, he waited. When she finished, he spoke carefully. "If we use decoys, on the southern road the enemy might split their forces. It could give us a cleaner shot at the convoy." Alara considered this, then nodded. "Good. We'll combine both strategies. Decoys first, then hit hard at the overpass." The squad exchanged glances, impressed. Their two leaders were no longer opponents, they were a team. When the mission began, the ruined city stretched around them like the bones of a dead giant. Towers leaned precariously, their steel frames exposed to the ash-colored sky. The convoy approached with heavy armored vehicles, alien banners glowing faintly on their sides. "Positions," Alara whispered over comms. The squad scattered into cover. Ryan took charge of the decoy team, setting off small explosions on the southern road. Just as planned, half the convoy diverted, leaving the main force vulnerable. The halls of the alien stronghold stretched like a maze of black steel and glowing runes. Every step echoed against the walls, reminding the human squad how deep they were inside enemy territory. Their mission was clear: destroy the command node that powered the supply network across 3 star systems. Without it, the Alien Alliance would lose their grip. With it, humanity's fleets would continue to fall. Captain Alara Voss moved silently at the front, her hand raised in warning at every corner. Lieutenant Ryan Kaur followed close, his pulse steady, but his mind alert. The squad trusted them now, more than ever. But trust alone would not win this battle. "This place feels alive," one soldier whispered. The walls pulsed faintly, as if they were breathing. "It is alive," Alara said softly. "Alien technology. Don't touch anything, unless I tell you." They pressed on, weaving through the corridors until they reached a wide chamber. In the center pulsed the command node, a massive crystal sphere suspended in midair, glowing with streams of alien energy. Its light bathed the room in shifting colors. Ryan stared at it, awe and unease mixing inside him. "That's it. That's what's been feeding their fleets," Alara nodded. "Yes, but it won't be undefended." As if on cue, the air shimmered. Alien guards emerged from cloaked alcoves, their armor gleaming, weapons raised. In seconds, the chamber erupted into chaos. "Positions!" Alara shouted. The squad spread out, exchanging fire with the enemy. Energy bolts crackled against the walls, sparks flying with every impact. The air was thick with heat and sound. Ryan charged forward, taking cover behind a shattered pillar. He fired relentlessly, driving the enemy back with bold strikes. But there were too many. For every alien that fell, 2 more seemed to appear. "Alara," Ryan shouted over comms, "we won't last long like this." Her mind worked quickly, scanning the chamber. The command node was connected to the walls by thick conduits pulsing with light. Destroying them could overload the system. There, she pointed. We need to sever those conduits. Once they're down, the node will collapse. The squad focused their fire, blasting at the conduits. One shattered, then another sprang sparks across the floor. But the aliens pushed harder, pressing the humans into a corner. A blast struck near Ryan, sending him sprawling. His ears rang. His vision blurred, but he pushed himself up. He saw Ilara across the chamber, pinned by fire, unable to move. In that instant, Ryan understood. He turned to the squad. Cover me! Before anyone could stop him, Ryan sprinted into the open, drawing the aliens' attention. Energy bolts rained around him, one searing across his shoulder. Pain flared, but he didn't slow. He shouted, fired, and moved with reckless courage, forcing the enemy to focus on him instead of the others. Ilara! He called, his voice raw. Now finish it! Ilara's heart clenched, but she didn't waste the chance. With the squad's combined fire, she destroyed the final conduit. The command node flared brightly, pulsing faster and faster. The wall shook, the air vibrated, and then the entire sphere collapsed in a blinding flash. The alien guards staggered, their weapons falling limp as the power surge disabled them. The chamber was filled with silence and smoke. Ilara, Ryan's voice was weak. He collapsed to one knee, clutching his burned shoulder. His armor was cracked, his face pale. Ilara rushed to him, ignoring the pain in her own legs. She dropped beside him, pulling his arm over her shoulder. You fool, she whispered fiercely, her voice breaking with emotion. You could have been killed. Ryan tried to smile, though his lips trembled. Better me than the squad. Better me than you. She looked at him, truly looked, and in that moment, the weight of their bond struck her fully. Once, he had been arrogant, stubborn, even a rival. Now he was her shield, her partner, the one who had risked everything for her. The squad gathered around, their faces etched with relief and admiration. They had seen the sacrifice. They had seen the truth. Get him to the shuttle, Ilara ordered, her voice sharp again, though her eyes betrayed her worry. Now, 2 soldiers helped lift Ryan, while Ilara stayed at his side the entire way back. The corridors shook as the stronghold began to collapse, the destroyed node sending violent tremors through its structure. Alarms wailed in alien tongues, but the squad pushed forward, fueled by the need to survive. They burst out into the open air, the sky above burning with alien fire. The shuttle was waiting, engines hot. Blaster fire rained around them as enemy. Reinforcements closed in, but Ilara and the squad fought fiercely, shielding Ryan as they boarded. At last, the shuttle lifted off, streaking into the sky. Below, the stronghold exploded in a cascade of light, flames licking upward like the death throes of a beast. Humanity had struck a blow that would be felt across the galaxy. Inside the shuttle, Ryan lay on a stretcher, his breath shallow but steady. Ilara sat beside him, her gloved hand resting lightly on his arm. You didn't have to do that, she said quietly, her voice softer than the engine's hum. His eyes flickered open, meeting hers with effort. I did. Because I trust you. Because I believe in you. For the first time in years, Ilara felt a crack in her calm armor. She squeezed his arm gently. Rest now. You've done enough. As Ryan's eyes closed, the squad sat in silence, each soldier knowing they had witnessed something powerful. Not just victory, not just sacrifice, but the bond of 2 leaders who had once clashed and now stood united. The war was far from over, but something unbreakable had been forged in that alien stronghold. A revelation had come, not just to Ilara, not just to Ryan, but to everyone who followed them. The medical bay of the human flagship hummed quietly, filled with the steady rhythm of machines and the faint smell of disinfectant. Ryan Kaur lay on the recovery bed, his shoulder wrapped in clean bandages, his body resting but not broken. For 2 days he drifted in and out of sleep, while the crew whispered stories of his reckless charge that saved them all. Ilara Voss sat by his side most of the time, silent but watchful. She had fought countless battles, led squads into firestorms, and faced enemies no one else had dared to confront. Yet nothing had unsettled her like seeing Ryan fall in that alien stronghold. On the third day, his eyes finally opened fully. They were tired but sharp, still carrying the defiance that made him who he was. "You're still here," he murmured, his voice hoarse. "Of course," Ilara replied simply. "You didn't think I would leave, did you?" A faint smile tugged at his lips. "You used to say I was too stubborn to lead. Now you're guarding me like I'm the most valuable man in the fleet." Ilara's expression softened, though she kept her tone steady. "You are valuable, not just to me, but to everyone who saw what you did. You gave them hope." He let out a weak laugh. Hope, or madness. Running into a room full of aliens wasn't exactly in the manual. "Maybe not," she admitted, leaning back in her chair. "But sometimes manuals don't win wars. People do." The silence that followed was heavy, but warm, filled with words neither of them needed to say aloud. Across the fleet, the destruction of the alien command node had sparked celebration. Messages poured in from colonies and fleets alike, praising the squad's victory. The aliens were faltering, their supply lines broken, their momentum slowed. Humanity had gained time, precious time to regroup, rebuild, and strike harder. But inside Ilara's mind, the victory was only part of the story. She knew wars were not won with single battles. The enemy would come back stronger, more cunning, and when that time came, they would need leaders who could carry not only weapons but also the weight of every soul who followed them. One evening, when Ryan was strong enough to walk again, Ilara called him to the observation deck. The stars stretched endlessly outside, vast and cold, but also beautiful. The remnants of the alien stronghold still glimmered faintly in the distance, drifting like dust in the void. "Do you see that?" she asked, nodding toward the wreckage. "Yes," he answered quietly. "Proof we're not beaten. Proof that sacrifice matters," she corrected gently. "Every ship, every soldier, every choice. It's not about winning every battle. It's about making sure humanity survives to fight the next one." He looked at her, his jaw tightening. "And you think I was right to do what I did?" She turned to face him fully, her eyes steady. "I think you showed me something I had forgotten. Strength isn't just skill or command, it's courage. It's giving everything when it matters most." For a long moment they stood in silence, the stars reflecting in their eyes. Then Ryan spoke softly. "When we first met, I thought you were the coldest commander I had ever seen. Untouchable. Perfect. I wanted to prove I could beat you, that I was better." Ilara's lips curved faintly, though there was no mockery in her tone. "And I thought you were arrogant, reckless, too eager to prove yourself." They both laughed softly, the sound strange but genuine after so many days of battle. "And now?" he asked. "Now," she said firmly. "I know we are stronger together. You and I. Our bond is the one thing the enemy cannot break." News spread quickly through the fleet. The squad who destroyed the alien node became a symbol. Soldiers spoke of Ryan's bravery and Ilara's leadership with respect and awe. The tale was retold in mess halls, in training grounds, and even across distant colonies where children pretended to be the heroes who turned the tide. Yet for Ilara and Ryan, the bond was not about glory. It was about trust. It was about standing at the edge of death and choosing each other again and again. One night, as the flagship prepared to tea,